Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday morning. Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show. As always, I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well at Scotty Drown. And don't forget to find the network over at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And guys, if you want to be interactive on today's show or any of our great shows, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on. Check out the YouTube link specifically. It is the home of our DSM pregame lives. And like I said, it is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on the screen with us. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. My man, happy Friday. And what is going on?
Happy Friday, man. Not much. Just getting through the week, getting through the work week, I guess we should say. But we got a big weekend of sports ahead of us. Obviously, we got the Phillies. They need to bounce back. But the more important thing is these Philadelphia 76ers getting off to a great start. So I'm happy to be here with you this morning, and we can chat about it, man. I'm excited.
You know, it's funny, man. We're going to start Sixers, and then, like you said, we'll transition over onto the Phillies, who lost again last night in Cincinnati to start their 4-game road stand against the Reds here. But it's kind of been a wild ride with Philadelphia sports going back to September, October, November time.
Yeah.
Because these teams are ending their seasons with championship runs. You have the Phillies first, then you have the Union, then you have the Eagles. And in the meantime, you have other teams like the Sixers starting slow. And what was our topic of conversation every day? It was basically like they are damn lucky that like the Phillies and Eagles are taking the conversation away from them because they're so positive. Well, the Phillies are kind of in that same boat now. The Phillies are 4-9, but the Sixers start a playoff series tomorrow. So you kind of take the attention off of the Philadelphia Phillies for the time being. And that's exactly where we'll start with the Sixers Nets first round matchup. Obviously, you and I will be doing pregame lives for each and every game. So we'll give our predictions for those specific games that night. But just in a totality form, looking at the series, man, let me ask you this question first. How important is it that the Sixers finish off the Brooklyn Nets semi-quickly? How important is it that this series doesn't go past 5 games?
It's incredibly important. It's a great question, by the way, because you look at this Brooklyn Nets team. They're a young team, right? They have a lot of guys in their youth, but they got a lot of guys that can do a little bit of everything as well, right? And I think the big thing when you're going against a young team like this, with a coach like Jacques Vaughn, you cannot instill confidence in them by giving up. For instance, losing a game in the first 2, right? You cannot lose one of the first 2 at home in Philly, or their confidence is going to skyrocket. And you might see a different version of the Brooklyn Nets at that point once they get that confidence. We know how lethal Mikal Bridges can be. They have a couple different guys, obviously. Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, just a bunch of different guys they can throw at us. So I think it's important for the Sixers to come out, start this series fast as well. Not only, end it quick, but start it fast and put their statement win in early, right? Game 1, they need to step on the throat and take all the confidence away from this Brooklyn Nets team. Because as we discussed with Kai Carlin the other day, this is a team that is not playing for anything significant. They're playing very free going into this postseason because they weren't supposed to be here, right?
No, all the turmoil they've gone through.
The Kyrie. Yeah, they weren't supposed to be here. They lost their coach in the middle of the season. They fired Steve Nash. Jacques Vaughn steps in, makes them look like a totally different team. They lose Ben Simmons for the season, right? That doesn't affect them and maybe even help them. So you look at this team and they're coming in with no pressure. That's the biggest thing. Where you look on the other side, the Sixers have all the pressure, right? Like you look around the building in Philadelphia. If they get bounced in the second round, say this first series extends, mind you, I don't think the Sixers are going to lose this series. If the first series gets extended to 6-7 games, now you're looking at the second round, and that pressure is mounting up. You're looking at Doc Rivers. He could lose
Yeah.
his job. James Harden maybe goes back to Houston. There's just a whole rabbit hole of conclusions that you can go to as far as pressure for the Sixers. So I think it's extremely important to get the Nets out of there early, 5 games max. And another reason, just to kind of cap it off there, I do believe Boston will get Atlanta out of there in 4 or 5 games. So
Very
you
early,
need
yeah.
to match Boston in a sense.
Brooklyn's funny, man, because this matchup to me heading in is mostly on paper the best matchup the 76ers could have pulled. If you look down between, obviously they were never going to get the Cavs or the Knicks, but you have the Cavs, the Knicks, the Nets in the middle of this. You could have the Heat. You have you could have or the Hawks, right? So from a talent perspective on paper, Brooklyn was the best pull for the 76ers, but this is a funny and interesting team, man. You talked about all the turnover and all the turmoil that they've gone through. In the last 2 trade deadlines, they have traded away every piece of that big 3 they assembled a short 2 years ago or so. You come into this year with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, 2 of the best talents of our entire generation, and you move them both right around the trade deadline. As a fan base, that has to be completely demoralizing, but they're playing better as a team right now. I will say that what I'm about to say is a little ironic, because when you look at the 76ers with the Boston Celtics beat us 3 out of 4 times. It took a Herculean effort from Embiid in the 4th game to beat them by 2 at home. So for me to say that I think they have a chance against Boston goes against what I'm about to say. This series is going to be over in 4 or 5, and it needs to be. I completely agree with you. You cannot let this drag out. And when you look at that season series record of the Sixers 4, Nets nothing, I think that translates into this, which is why I say it's ironic. Like, why would I give the Sixers a puncher chance against a team they couldn't beat, but not the Nets? It's from a purely talent perspective. That's all it comes down to. Like, the Sixers legitimately have the first 3 best players on the floor.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey are the 3 best players in this series, and they all play in the red, white, and blue. That is the difference. Okay, so this series should be over fairly easy. We have a question here from Andre. What's the confidence level in this series? 99.99999%. This is, listen, I said 4 or 5. I'm not sure Brooklyn grabs 1 W. I'm really not. I think they'll be pesky. I think they'll be annoying. Everything that Kai Carlin laid out. He also mentioned, Scotty, when he was talking to us about how they kind of individually have playoff experience.
Yeah.
When you talk about guys that have played with Phoenix, that have played with Denver, with Dallas, who went to an Eastern Conference Finals last year, they have guys with playoff experience and that have made some runs. But as a collective group, they're young. They're kind of a bunch of guys that there's no one on that team that strikes fear in you. Mikal Bridges has been a great story. And for whatever reason, he went from feeling like he averaged 7 in Phoenix to averaging like 32 over here in Brooklyn. He's good. Okay. Mikal Bridges is a fringe all-star-esque type player. Maybe he is moving forward with more ball handling and scoring responsibilities in the future, but I don't, my confidence level is sky high, man. How about yours?
Yeah, I would have to say I'm very confident in the first round series. Like I said, I don't think that the Sixers are going to lose this series. It's not really about that for me. It's about how they win it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we've discussed so far in the show, you got to get them out of there in 4 or 5 games. That's how confident I am. I'm talking about the way they need to win versus
I'm talking about a sweep.
If they need to win. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Brooklyn Nets, they're interesting. I think the way it plays out in my mind, what I'm looking at, they're going to come out and give a very strong fight in that game 1 in Philly. They're going to try they're going to try as hard as they can to steal that game, which may lead to it being close. Look, if the Nets are on, or if the Nets are hot from behind the arc, that's how they stay in games with the Sixers. I mean, that's the most simple way to put it. There's no mismatch on the Nets that's going to draw a double team and then create open shots for other guys or create open lanes for other guys. They don't have a ton of playmaking. I know Spencer Dinwiddie's kind of leading the charge there. They don't have a ton of playmaking in the offense. It's a lot of just, driving and kicking. If guys are hitting shots, then
Yeah.
it could be a little bit tougher of a matchup. But I just think in Philadelphia, the Sixers, if they come out the way that I would expect them to come out, mind you, they've let us down before. If they come out and play the way that I expect them to come out, they should be ready to go at home. They should be able to hit their shots at home, right? They should be operating on all cylinders to start the playoffs because that's how you should want to start. You want to build that confidence and start that journey the right way. So when I look at it from that standpoint, I think the Nets play us close in the first game. Maybe the Sixers pull away late. Maybe it is a close game. I think game 2, Sixers blow the Nets out. Then you go back to Brooklyn. I think you have another close game in Brooklyn, maybe.
Yeah.
And then game 4, you blow them out again. And if they steal one of those games in Brooklyn, then maybe you play 5 and come back to Philly. But I don't know. Are we discrediting the Nets too much? I mean, I would love if somebody out there has like better points. You know what I mean? Like,
I would say this.
It's very simple.
I would say this. I don't think anything we're saying is anti-Nets. I think it's how confident you are in a Sixers team that has championship aspirations. Now, I know there's going to be people out there that won't hold them in the same breath as Milwaukee and Boston. And maybe at the moment, I don't have them on equal playing field with those two teams. But the Sixers are in that slight tier below those two with a puncher's chance to take out either of those two teams. And I think that's different than any of the other opponents in this Eastern Conference. Like I would throw this to you, right? Yeah. If you were to tell me it's Milwaukee and Brooklyn at the top, I would tell you it's Milwaukee and Boston at the top. I would tell you it's those two, the Sixers, and then everybody else. I think the Sixers are on a tier of their own where they're teetering between being a top team in the East and winning the Eastern Conference, and being above everybody else, like the Knicks and the Hawks and the Cavs and everything like that. So I don't think it's anti-Brooklyn. I think it's how good this Sixers team actually is. It's funny though, man. You mentioned making a statement in game 1, and I do agree with you because you don't ever in a game or in a series want to allow an inferior opponent to think or believe that they have a chance of beating you. That's what lets them stick around and hang around and make this series frustrating. The funny thing is, I can only count 2 series the Sixers have won the first game in the Joel Embiid era. I go back to their first playoff series with Ben and Joel and Saric and Rocco, and they beat the Miami Heat at home in game 1. And they beat the Toronto Raptors in game 1 last year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they've lost every other game 1 in round 1 and round 2 in the Joel Embiid era. So they start slow, man. But just like that Brooklyn series a couple years ago where they lost game 1.
Yeah.
They never looked back after that. So it's definitely going to be interesting, man. I think they start quick for you though.
You look at Brooklyn, I mean, just to give them a little bit of props here, right? Like not to totally shit on Brooklyn today, but I mean, if you look at them statistically across the board as a team right now, they're second in the NBA in points per game. They're 4th in the NBA in rebounds per game this season. 1st in the NBA in assists per game this season. 5th in the NBA in opponents' points per game. So they're playing pretty solid basketball. Like, I'm not trying to discredit them. I just think when you get to the playoffs,
that's it right there.
It's star power, right? Like, and at the end of the day, where's the mismatch coming from for Brooklyn that's going to change this series? There is none. And Embiid is that mismatch, and he's honestly that mismatch in almost every series that you go into. But especially against this Brooklyn Nets team that doesn't have a Kevin Durant anymore, right? Mikal Bridges, like you said, he's a good player. It's a great story. Maybe next year, even as the main guy, he gets another year of footing in that role. Maybe he turns into an all-star. I don't know, right? Like, he's averaged 26 points since he went to Brooklyn. But not right now, right? Like, that's not happening in this series, in this postseason. He's still got some stuff he needs to figure out. And I think the Sixers, we're not looking at a Sixers team that is just about offense, right? Like, that's not even their calling card, despite – you have James Harden that leads the league in assists. You have Embiid that leads the league in scoring. Offense is not their calling card. They're top 3 defensive unit. That's the big thing here. So I think they're going to be able to throw a couple different things at Mikal Bridges, at Spencer Dinwiddie. They'll be able to throw a couple different guys at them as well. That's one key with having the bench unit that the Sixers have.
What you just said is exactly what I was going to bring up as my next point as to why it's not discrediting Brooklyn. You read off those numbers, and those are great numbers, and they're playing team basketball, and they look more like a unit than they did with that star power in KD and Kyrie. I don't believe it translates to postseason basketball in the NBA. It is a different beast. It's a different animal. You mentioned needing star power. That is true. The fact that they're averaging whatever second in scoring per game, this game is going to slow down. Defense is going to tighten up. They are not going to average that. Mikal Bridges, for as annoying as he may be this series against us, and give it back to us, because clearly he was frustrated with being moved on draft night, as he openly spoke about a couple days ago. I don't think he's averaging 27, 28 per game in this series, Scotty. I would legitimately ask you this question, because I thought about this when you talk about star power. I would rather play Brooklyn than the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
Brooklyn is a better team. They had a better end of the regular season, playing more like a unit. We watched the Philadelphia Bluecoats, like Kai said, beat the fully healthy Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta when they were fighting for seeding. I understand. I would rather play this Brooklyn Nets team than a team that could get hot and have some of that star power thrown back your way, with a Trae Young that's given us issues, with a Bogdanovich that can light it up from the perimeter, like a John. Like, they have more not stars, but I think you get my. I think you get what I'm
I get your point. I mean, you can go down the line of each Eastern Conference team and do the same thing,
right?
Because I don't think we would want to play like Toronto, right? Like, I don't want to play Toronto in the post. Like, I don't want to play Miami either. There's a couple different teams that are below the Brooklyn Nets that I would rather play the Brooklyn Nets than, and I think
I'm glad it's Brooklyn and not the Knicks, right?
Exactly, the Knicks would be a much tougher matchup. And once again, just not discrediting Brooklyn. It's just once you get to the postseason, it is about star power.
What do you say, Scotty, all the time? There's levels to it, bro.
Look, I mean, the fact that we're asking this question before the series starts, I think points to exactly what we're talking about. Who's going to be the next player to step up? Brooklyn will have good defense, and Embiid's 1,000% getting doubled. Go ahead and double him. I mean, double him and leave shooters open. Like, that's fine. That's what we're talking about here, though. The Sixers aren't going to double anybody on the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah,
Embiid's going to post up in the center of in the anchor of the defense, and he's going to protect the paint. So that's what we're looking at. Versus the Brooklyn Nets are going to have to scheme all of this to double team Embiid and then close out on shooters across the court. And I'm sure the Sixers, if they're smart, they would be working on what to do out of the double team. But Embiid's been great out of the double team all season, man. That's something that he's improved on. So this is kind of a great point, in my opinion, because that's exactly what the Nets are looking at here.
So listen, I know we're sitting here kind of thinking this is somewhat of a cakewalk through a first round, so it's really like, who needs to step up? It's not in that light, but if Embiid does get doubled and Brooklyn has a defensive game plan for him, like the question asks, who is your second guy to come up? Is it a James Harden, or is James Harden not as much of a necessity until the second round? Is this Tyrese Maxey's time to get his foot back in the playoffs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question as well, because something that came to my mind as you were laying that scenario out is, maybe you push Tyrese Maxey a little bit more in the first series. That way you can save James, if you can. Like, this is a big if, right? If Brooklyn comes out, they play the Sixers tough throughout the first 4 games, and you need all of James Harden, then that is what it is. But what I'm saying is, maybe just go to Tyrese Maxey first, see if you can get him going, maybe game 1, right? Because I think this is a team where Tyrese Maxey should have his way, right? We just talked about the mismatch with Embiid, him getting doubled. I think that means open looks for either Harden, Maxey, Tobias, PJ, right? One of those guys are going to be open each and every time that Embiid touches the ball. But this feels like a matchup that Maxey could truly dominate. And I say that because he is the youth of the Sixers, right? He can match that youth of the Brooklyn Nets, that energy. He's going to be able to run the court. He's going to get a lot of open looks on the 3-point line. So I would lean Maxey, But I do think James Harden should have his way as well if he needs to. I don't see any reason why James Harden should struggle in this matchup per se. But ultimately, our eyes are on Boston, right? It's hard for me to, and it's sad, man. Maybe it's something to talk about in itself, but like, I can't keep my mind off Boston. I talk about this series, and all I can think about is the matchup with the Celtics, and I think that's like my own little personal problem.
No, I'm with you. There's no juice for me right now heading into tomorrow afternoon. Now, again, I'm sure at 12:45 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, I'll be ready. Right now, thinking about the Brooklyn Nets and all their role players, I'm just expecting to get through at this point and expecting to get through fairly quickly. And the Sixers can't have that mindset. Don't get me wrong. You and I can
exactly.
Have that mindset.
That's a good point. They cannot think like that.
Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. What Cole's saying here, because that would be the one way the Nets win a game. Sixers cold, not hitting shots. Maybe Embiid has an off game. Sure. He's not hitting his shot, and then that's how the Nets ultimately steal one. I'm looking up Maxi's numbers versus the Nets this season. I just want to see.
I'll tell you what else, Scotty. I don't think when we're talking about the star power for the Sixers versus Brooklyn, I also don't think what you see coaching-wise in this series is what you're going to get as the journey continues on to the second round. And it's probably going to even upset some fans because, oh, Doc, what are you doing? It's the playoffs.
Yeah.
Doc doesn't need to shrink his bench this series. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to see the 5-in, 5-out hockey shift, okay? And he said he would eliminate that. I don't want to see all that. But he doesn't need to shrink to 8 or 9 versus Brooklyn. This is, like, to me, Scotty, this isn't going to be when we talk about the starters playing 40 minutes a night. This isn't that series. I don't think Joel and James are going to play 39, 41 minutes a night. I think this is going to be regular season-esque rotations and minutes for this team until you get to what you're thinking about in the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, Cole, this is actually a funny point as well.
It's a good point.
Yeah, it is. It is a good point.
I think, you know what it is? I even took my mind off of that, Scotty. It's like there's no more drama and there's no more problems, and Ben was shut down for the year.
Not even a Ben Simmons, right?
So
like he's not even.
Feels like there's like more of a cohesiveness to the group, and they're a little bit more likable now. And you see Bridges dropping 42, and this person doing that. So
you're happy for him, right?
Yeah, it's almost like, they're playing better. When in reality, they're not.
Like, I like Mikal Bridges, man. Like, I wanted him on the Sixers.
I wish he was here.
It's gonna blow me this whole series. Don't get me wrong. It's gonna blow me this whole series because we literally traded him for nothing.
Yeah.
We literally got rid of Mikal Bridges for nothing. He was in our building. He was ready to go for the Sixers. His mom was in our building, and we still let him go. I will never understand that move. That is like, it felt like corruption. Like, it just didn't feel.
It is, dude. Not to take like a journey back to miserable times, and there's been a couple moves, and not just in Philly sports history, but that the Sixers organization has made throughout Joel Embiid's time here with draft picks and trades, etc. And like people always point to the Boston trade with Fultz, and like Boston was never not going to get Jason Tatum. You weren't like people think like, oh, the Sixers made that trade and then they just didn't take Tatum. Boston wasn't making that trade if Tatum wasn't falling to 3.
Yeah.
It was already in place. Okay. Yeah. So forget that one. Ja was kind of the pick, right? Like in that year, like at 3 behind D'Lo, like at times people were arguing for Kristaps, but no one knew who Kristaps was really at that point. The Mikal one is the one that is like the most obvious because it's not a star. It's not a 1B to Joel. It is the perfect fit for what they could use right now.
It's everything. It's literally everything that the Sixers need in today's day and age. Like, everything they need. Like, and it's everything they've needed for the last 3 years, right? Like,
it's the Tobias Harris of what you need Tobias Harris to be. Bro.
He is literally the guy that should be in Tobias Harris's spot. You are 100% on point there. That's what hurts me the most, man. You talk about 3 and D. He's not even just 3-and-D though. Obviously, he's
No,
able to
not
average
anymore.
26
But that's
points.
what he was kind of viewed at is in
Yeah.
Phoenix, surrounded by the stars, which makes you question kind of. He would still be perfect here because of that 3-and-D role.
Yeah, but
But
would he have
like
been able to
again, you
develop?
get caught up in the scoring and what he's doing right now. If he wasn't doing that in Phoenix because of Devin Booker and Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, do you
Yeah.
think he would be doing that in Philadelphia next to Joel Embiid and James Harden and whoever else was here? No, he's
Yeah.
opened up
Yeah.
to do more because he's the best player on the team now.
Yeah, I agree, man.
But nonetheless, he would still be a perfect fit.
He would. It's just funny that we're gonna get probably tortured by this the whole series.
Yeah.
And when I say tortured, I don't mean, once again, we don't mean that the Sixers are gonna lose, but Mikal Bridges is gonna get his for sure in this series. But I was looking up numbers here, so I looked up Maxi's numbers. Looks like Harden actually played a little bit better against the Nets this season. Mind you, it's regular season. You can kind of throw it out in a sense. But Harden against the Nets this year averaged 26 points, 6.5 assists, 4 rebounds. So seems like he's more in a scoring mentality. I don't know if
he
maybe
almost
that's
had like a
because
little bit of an edge playing against that specific team.
yeah. So maybe Harden is the guy that comes out and lights.
Maybe
the Nets
Harden
up first
wasn't
round.
the problem. I don't know. I don't know.
It's interesting, man. It's interesting.
But look, man, before we transition on over
Yeah.
to the disappointing and depressing Phillies, anything else you got on your mind in terms of this first round series? Like I said, we're going to be going game by game on the pregame show. We're not diving into a round 2 matchup just yet. What else are you looking at versus the Nets?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to pose a question to you, and I think it's interesting as we look at D'Anthony Melton throughout this postseason stretch.
Mhm.
Who would you trust more? Who would you lean on more, or I guess predict more that could win you a postseason game? D'Anthony Melton or Tobias Harris? Who is more likely that they could hit, 3, 4 threes in a game, rebound the ball really well, defend the best player on the court? Who out of those two guys could win you a game in the postseason?
I'm sorry why I'm laughing. It's a good
Isn't that
question.
crazy?
It's a good question. It shouldn't be a good question.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be in the stratosphere of a good question, but here we
I was
are
thinking
because it's
about
almost
this the
like,
other day,
well,
man.
who could have the ability to affect and take a game over more? Scotty, at this point in time, I don't know.
It's
I don't
wild,
know.
man.
Cole's going with listen. I think I'm going to give Toby his time for redemption in this postseason.
Okay.
But this is it.
I feel
This
that.
is it, man. There is no that leash, that string is this long, bro,
Yeah.
in terms of moving forward.
You see where I'm at.
If I see 7-point Tobias Harris for multiple nights in this postseason or in this series, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. If I see Tobias Harris come out on 70% shooting with 13 points in the first half and finish a game with 15 points, I'm going to lose my mind, dude. I will trust Tobias Harris right now. Yeah. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He is the max contract guy, not a bench piece. I know what he can do. I saw what he could do. Jesus, a few weeks ago when what was it? Joel and James were out. Excuse me, and the dude scored like 25 and had like 8 assists. Oh, in Chicago. But I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you, man.
Dude, I know, Cole. Trust me, I know.
As I was looking, through everything, getting ready for this this series, I just thought about that. I was like, man, there's been several times this season where D-Melt has come off the bench, or maybe he started even, hit 3, 4, 5 threes in a game, score 25 points, and get 3, 4 steals, 6 rebounds, and all of a sudden D-Melt's the player of the game. And I just can't remember many games like that for Tobias Harris. But you're right, man. And there was a point in the season where he called himself a sharpshooter, and he was playing at a very – yeah, I know. It went downhill after that, but –
he did hit a big one against Memphis.
He
did hit a big one against Memphis. Listen, man, and here's the crazy part. I wanted to see, just because Kai had mentioned when we interviewed him that Tobias actually had a pretty good season, and we definitely let these down performances clog our memory.
Yeah.
He averaged almost 15 a game. He averaged 14.7 on 50% shooting, 39% from three, almost 6 rebounds per game,
Yeah.
2.5 assists per game, and almost a steal per game. If you get that Tobias Harris, that is perfect. If Tobias Harris can average 14 to 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 or 3 assists, that is perfect for your fourth option. Here's the problem, Scotty. Within these 23-point nights against the Warriors, these 16-point nights, these 13-point nights, he scored 6 against the Bucks on April 2nd. He scored 5 against the Celtics on April 4th.
Yeah,
he took 6 shots against the Bucks. He took 8 shots against the Celtics. He took 8 shots on April 6th against the Miami Heat. Those were his last 3 played games in the regular season, and he missed 3 others. So in the final 6 games, Tobias Harris has averaged 7 points and taken no more than 8 shots per game. I just mentioned those 2 teams specifically being who your road is going to need to get through.
And see, the thing that's so infuriating with Tobias Harris, as we break this down, man, is when he is playing confident, he can get to the rack. Like, he's not just a shooter. Like, he can get to the rack and he finishes his layups. It's always a big thing. You have to finish your layups, Tobias. But, like, it just blows my mind because he could get to the free throw line. There's different things that he could do to help this team, and he just doesn't do it all the time. I'm even looking at his performances against Brooklyn this year. He played them 3 times. Obviously, didn't play in the last matchup. Mm-hmm. So in the first matchup, mind you, this is KD and Kyrie time when they're there. He drops 24, 6, and 3. Next matchup, he drops 18, 4, and 2. Great. But then you get to the third matchup, man, and it's 3 points, 5 like in 29 minutes. So how is that happening? I need to know what is going on in this game throughout, the play of this game where that happens, bro. Because I don't understand that. He was 1 for 9 from the field.
Never happen.
1 for 9 from the field, 1 for 3 from the 3-point line. It can't happen in the postseason.
No.
It just can't, especially against the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, come on.
No.
This should be a game. This should be a series for the Sixers players to get it going before they go against real competition.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you one more question before we move on. You mentioned Melton versus Tobias, which I thought was funny, but it's kind of a realistic point at this point in time, especially against Brooklyn and probably against a team like Boston with those wings and that length. You are going to need size and athleticism off the bench. I'm going to give you 2 options off the bench. Who do you trust more this postseason run? Daniel House or Jalen McDaniels?
Wow. Trust more.
Who can
That's
do?
All right,
who can do more for the Sixers team as that long, lengthy wing?
It's tough, man, because Daniel House has made a very strong push to in the regular season, I should say.
Hey, he's jumping over people on layups.
He's jumping over, and he plays with like energy, and I just like his
yeah.
The only thing is when the energy could go south, I guess, if things are going bad, because he's going to give you the same energy no matter what. But I don't know. What I would say, I guess, is that Jalen McDaniels has the higher ceiling, and he has the higher potential. And I would say that if we're seeing a lot of Daniel House, it's because Jalen McDaniels is not fulfilling that potential, because I think he's going to get the first nod. Just because he is more lengthy, right? He is more lanky. He's a little bit better of a defender, a little bit more athletic. He can still shoot the 3 ball. I think Daniel House might be a little bit better of a shooter, but nonetheless, Jalen McDaniels can shoot it from the 3-point line. That's an interesting point though, man, because the thing with Jalen McDaniels that frustrates me sometimes, he gets like that Paul Reed syndrome where he just like fouls. I mean, if he does that, then you just can't play him, right? Like, you're not going to be able to play him if he fouls out. But that's the one worry for Jalen McDaniels, like the little things, right? What was that one game where he did like the push?
At the end of the third quarter,
against the Celtics.
Hold on,
I can't remember.
Oh God, who did he do it to? It could have been Boston.
Where I think he just like pushed the dude.
He ran his shoulder into him at the end of the half. Whatever. I'm not going to remember what team, but it might have been Boston.
I think it was that same game where George Niang fouled the 3-point shooter. Like after the whistle and it still counted. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think it was that same game, man. But
Hold on.
that's
Now
that's
I
the type of
need
stuff.
to know who it is now.
I know. Oh man, who was that?
Hold on. Where's this? Oh, Dallas. Dallas.
Dallas.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Dallas at home in Philly. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. There we go. Whew.
But
Got that
yeah,
out of the way.
that's the stuff that worries me with Jalen McDaniels, where you get Daniel House, he's just gonna fly up and down the court, he's gonna shoot the three, and he's gonna celebrate when he makes 3-pointers. Like that's what you get from Daniel House. You get pure energy and a little bit of sharpshooting. Whereas Jalen McDaniels, you see, and I hate to do this, you see with his brother.
Oh
They
yeah.
get a little bit out of their heads sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, punching
No,
the
it's
wall.
not only punching walls. I texted you. I literally the only time I bet on Jaden McDaniels this season, one time out of 82 freaking games.
Oh,
The kid
man.
picked up 4 fouls in 6 minutes. Like,
You know what's
so
weird?
I see where he gets the trait from, man.
You know what's weird, though? Seems like we're not getting the comments from YouTube for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, because there's a lot more comments. There's like a Nets
Oh
fan.
yeah, there is.
Yeah, there's a lot more comments on YouTube than are actually showing here. So I'm
yeah,
sorry,
we
guys, if we're not
apologize.
getting to your comments. They're actually not popping up on StreamYard here for some reason.
Great. Always an issue with StreamYard. I
Oh,
see
it's
Pastor
a-
Rams in the comment. Andre, appreciate it. Yeah, man. Damn. Hopefully we can figure out how to get this fixed moving forward.
Absolutely.
Guys, if you want, follow us on Facebook, and obviously Cole's comments we're getting through on Facebook. So if you want to be interactive, drop your comments on the Facebook page if you have a Facebook account, and we'll see if we can get to them there, man. But Scotty, with that said, wrapping up the Sixers conversation, we will give our game picks game by game throughout the SM pregame lives on this postseason run. But round one, give me your thought process, give me your prediction here. This is not going past 5. I will tell you that, but I'm going to go back to this. I think that this Sixers team, not that there's a difference in dropping one game fluky to a inferior opponent. I think the Sixers do exactly what they did to the Brooklyn Nets in the regular season and dispose of them very quickly. I think they sweep the Brooklyn Nets. I think Joel Embiid is locked in as he ever will be. And I think they show you a little bit why they're different than previous years. Yes, like I said, 4 or 5 is not some great disparity. Yeah. I've seen you beat teams in 5.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you dispose of anybody in 4 and not let them have a chance. I'm taking the Sixers in 4 against the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. If the Sixers are about their business, then they should get out of this in 4 games. I'm gonna go 5 here. I'm gonna go 5 games. I'm gonna give a little bit of credit to Brooklyn Nets and what they could possibly do if they get hot in one game. I think when you look at this series, Game 3 is that game where that would be the game that I would expect Brooklyn to win if they win one. Right. Once you go back to Brooklyn, that first game at home for them, they come out with a little bit of energy, shoot the ball really well. Maybe the Sixers have an off night. I think that would be the game that they would grab, but. Ultimately, I think 4 or 5 games max here. Maybe they steal one, but nonetheless, the Sixers' star power is going to show in this one. I know in the comments, it's Pastor Rams saying we're sleeping on Nick Claxton.
I was just about to bring that up.
It's not like that. We're not sleeping on Nick Claxton. He's a solid player. I would love him as like our backup center.
You're a lot nicer than I was about to get disrespectful to Nick Claxton. Nick Claxton's about to be in a world of hurt. A world of hurt. Sorry.
Yeah, he's going to get cooked,
Sorry,
man. Ain't no sleeping on him, bro. He's getting cooked.
He's a nice player. He's a good player against
solid.
Against any other center. I'd say, yeah, I like Nick Claxton. He's not this one.
Yeah, no, I think the star power shows in this. You get Embiid at his best, obviously, but I think Harden, Maxey, Tobias even, right? This is a series for them to get their games flowing and ready for the stiffer competition that will come in the later postseason. But yeah, I got the Sixers taking care of business in this series.
Sixers in 4, Sixers in 5, and Boston. We will see you in round 2, and then
you
remember our conversation about a month or 2 ago about not the boring pregame shows, but the pregame shows that just have no energy to them because we're playing the Orlando Magic for 3 times. This series is going to be like that for me unless the Sixers lose the first 2 games and it's like, oh no, what is happening? This is going to be like that, and then the fun will start to begin come round 2, man. But Until we get there, we will take a game-by-game over here at the DSM YouTube channel on DSM Pregame Live starting tomorrow morning and then continuing throughout this playoff run that we hope is a long one, man. But let's transition on over to the Phillies for the last 20 or so minutes of this show. They lose again last night in Cincinnati to the Reds by a score of 6-2. The Philadelphia Phillies are now 4-9 on the young season, Scotty. I did a game recap yesterday, and I made a statement that I'm putting my foot down. I'm drawing the line in the sand. This is the series the Philadelphia Phillies have to bring the panic back down. They have to swing the momentum this series with 4 against the Reds. And I said they had to at least win 3 or 4 because I didn't see a 4-game sweep in sight. Now, 3 or 4 still on the table, but now I don't see 3 straight in sight with the way this team's playing. Last night was just the epitome of trends with this team in a negative direction.
It's over and over, man.
Somehow in the second inning escape another base running blunder by Christian Pache. Sosa gets back at third. They throw over to third. They luck out. Runners on the corners for the top of the lineup with 1 out. Bases loaded for Schwarber with 2 outs. They continue to leave base runners in scoring position. I think they are now 3 or 4 for their last 21 with runners in scoring position or some stat like around those numbers. Bailey Falter again with the pitching staff. The pitching hasn't been the biggest issue over the last 5 games or so, but my God, how many 2-out, 2-strike hits and singles RBIs are you going to allow in 1 inning?
This
There's no
team
life
in general.
to this team.
Yeah.
They're not fun. You tweeted it out. It was like 5 innings of torture to start this game. That's exactly what it feels like. They are not fun to watch. They don't look like they're having fun. There's no energy. There's no consistency. There's no identity to this team right now, man.
Yeah.
And to me, they have 3 days to buckle up and buckle down and get this thing moving in a positive direction to get back to 7-9. 2-2 is just, it might be in the world where we live in now because they lost yesterday. 2-2, quite frankly, is not good enough, Scotty.
Yeah.
It's not at this point.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. It's like, where do you even start with this team? Because they're doing so many different things, like over and over, like wrong, right? Like you mentioned, like the hits on
minor league stuff.
You got 2 outs, 2 strikes, and how many hits you get. I mean, Nola did the same exact thing the night before. Like, we're watching the same thing over and over again. And like, I text you, we text throughout the game, every single game. And, in the first inning, you get a run on the board. You have more guys in scoring position that you don't capitalize on. And I texted you, I was like, man, that's a good start. But it's still terrible somehow, right? Like, it's still terrible. You get a run on the board, and then boom, they give up a run right back, right? They get the run right back.
In incredible fashion, by the way. In a way, I like they find new ways to disappoint me on a nightly basis. You take a 1-run lead in the first inning, right? You kill anybody's nerfy out there. Let's go, Fightins.
Yes.
Within 20 seconds of the bottom of the first, Jonathan India doubles. He takes off to steal third. JT pops up, throws down to third. Sosa just, I don't know what happened. Took his eye off the ball. It wasn't too high. India probably would have been out at third for the first out of the inning. No runs across. The ball gets to the freaking wall in left field, man. And he crawls home. And it's 1-1. And you start over, and they never saw the lead again.
Was that Ricky on the commentary yesterday?
No, Ruben.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, I got you. Either way, he was calling it out. This is like collegiate level stuff that we're seeing on the field, right? Like, they don't even do these type of mistakes in college. And I think that's the most infuriating thing. Whether it's Sosa, whether it's JT, you need to make that play. Like, it doesn't matter. And to your point about Schwartz earlier, and even Trey Turner, man, we got to give a little props to Trey for what he's done this season, but there's times where he's gone over, and there's moments. It's the moments for me, right? It's the moments.
Timing.
Kyle Schwarber, right? I'll start with Kyle Schwarber because he was the first culprit. You want to crank a home run, that's great, right? To get us our second run. mind you, they scored one in the first inning and they only got one more the rest of the game. How demoralizing is that? But
how that parlay I sent you, how close was that to not hitting then?
yeah, I mean, come on, we're riding the line here. But Schwarber wants to crank a solo homer. Crank it when you got 2-3 guys on the base, man. Like that's the difference for the Phillies right now is they're not working together as a team. Trey Turner, I texted you at the end of that game last night. You have 2 guys on base. You have an opportunity for Trey to either get guys home and put some more runs on the board or load the bases up for Kyle Schwarber.
Right,
and he strikes out. He strikes out the last two games at the end of the game where he has an opportunity to turn something.
Right. Ghost runner on second with something. 2 outs 2 days ago. I was at that game. The momentum was already sucked out by that point. But when you're that great, all you need to do was put one in the out, bloop one down the line, bloop one in the gap.
Energy's back.
And with Sosa's speed, it's a tie game. And instead, here we are, man. And I completely agree with you. You mentioned moments. You mentioned time. They have there's no timely hitting going on right now. None whatsoever.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah. There's no capitalization on anything. And yesterday, Lodolo, I mean, he's a great pitcher, and he has a bit of an off day.
Right.
And
we got to him
and take advantage, right?
Right. You got his pitch count up high early.
1 for 9 on RSP. I mean, it's crazy.
Dude, it's infuriating to watch. And it's so demoralizing because I've been saying this on the game recaps over and over. It's like just when you think they're going to snap out of whatever this is, they find new ways to dig themselves deeper.
Yeah.
You start 1-5. You win 2 against Cincinnati. We're going for the sweep. We're turning things around. You basically get walked off on and blow 2 2-run leads at home to the Cincinnati Reds. You lose that game. You come back. You score 15 on the reigning NL Cy Young winner in Sandy Alcantara on Monday night with a bullpen game on the mound for you. You win that game. Okay, here we go. You lose with Nolan and Wheeler the next 2 at home to Miami. Now you get your ass kicked in Cincinnati to the Reds again. You're 2-2 versus the freaking Reds, man. I get it. The first 2 series, you got bombarded. You're the reigning NL champs. You got 6 on the road for some reason. I know the schedule comes out before the end of the season, but that's stupid to me. You get Texas with that pitching staff to start. Yeah. Then you get to the Bronx and play the Yankees with that lineup. That sucks. The slate needed to be wiped clean there. You came up with 10 against the Reds and the Marlins with 6 of them at home, and you are looking to about to be under 500 on that 10-game stretch. That's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. Yeah. And again, it's embarrassing the way they're losing. I think that's the biggest thing.
It's new ways. It's new ways every day. It's right. And listen, we've blamed the players for this one, rightfully so. I think last night was more of a player's loss than it was giving blame to the manager and Rob Thompson like we have in the past. But again, I'm not going to leave him off the hook. I can't do that. Christian Pache starting over Brandon Marsh, Josh Harrison in the lineup again. Whatever this idea is that Brandon Marsh can't hit lefties when he's already proven you wrong this year, not just with a bloop single or a good walk. No. Gap numbers, power numbers. He's taken a lefty deep. He's ripped a double for an RBI off a lefty. Whatever you think Brandon Marsh is going to do poorly against left-handed pitching, Christian Pache is doing that and worse. So just give up that experiment, Scotty. And I tweeted this. I was texting back and forth with Kata from Kata Media last night because he kept messing around about Pache. I wouldn't even care that Christian Pache was a member of this team if he was used correctly and used sparingly to give Marsh a breather or give an outfielder a day off here and there. Scotty, we are 13 games in, and Christian Pache has started 5 or 6 of them and appeared in about 8 of them. What are you thinking, Rob? The bottom line is this. The players aren't performing, pitching, hitting, runners in scoring position, base running mistakes, the bullpen, starters not getting deep. Again, Bailey Falter can't get to the 6th, right?
Pitch, They're
not performing. The manager feels like he doesn't have a grip on what he wants to do night in and night out. The lineup, the bullpen, anything like that, okay? There's no accountability with base runners, right? Jimmy Rollins got benched for a lack of hustle and a base running mistake before. And you're telling me Christian Pache and Brandon Marsh and Bryson Stott and Nick Castillo, all these guys just get a pass? The bottom line is, for a team with championship hopes and championship aspirations, there are far too many non-major league players on this team, and far too many non-major league players playing and starting on a daily basis.
Yeah. I completely
Cody Clemens,
agree.
not a major league player. Christian Pache, not a major league player. Josh Harrison at one point in time was a major league hitter. He's not anymore. He doesn't have a freaking clue in the batter's box right now. Not a major league player. Scotty, look at the arms we threw out last night. Bailey Falter was fine in his first 2 starts, and he's your fifth end guy. He's your long reliever type of guy when they get more healthy. You start a game with Bailey Falter, which already feels crappy, right? You threw Bailey Falter, McKinley Moore, and Andrew Vasquez, which Vasquez actually looked good in the 8th and 9th innings, right? Didn't give up a run, whatever. He's actually those 2 guys I just named out of the bullpen aren't major league players. And this game was never more than a 4-run deficit. And we basically threw in the white towel. Rob basically said, here you guys, we're not winning this one, so I'm throwing out my 2 worst bullpen guys and I'm saving arms in this one.
Yeah.
What are we doing in the first 13? There is 149 games left. This is the longest season for a reason. We might not even remember this come August 1st. But this was as bad of a start as you could have imagined.
Yeah.
You might see those sellout crowds and all that energy and juice from that championship run erase from this ballpark immediately. You might be back to Tuesday nights, 14,000 in a 44,000 stadium because of the performance you're getting night in and night out. You went from ticket prices being raised because of the expectations of this team back to $15 tickets.
Yep.
Simply because this team can't get out of their own way and pull their heads out of their asses. It has to start tonight, man. So let me ask you this. We just talked series for Brooklyn. I know we'll do game by game. We'll try to over the weekend, whatever the case is. But from a series landscape, from a totality form, what happens this weekend, Scotty? We know what needs to happen. I get that. We know the Phillies need to start stacking up some wins. But what do you think happens with Cincinnati? Lodolo's out of the way. So the pitching staff eases up for the Phillies lineup right now. But what's your prediction for the next 3?
So the rest of the series then we have a bullpen game with Strom, right? Mm-hmm. And then we get Nola on the last game of the series. So trying to be realistic here. I feel like they're going to drop one of these next 2, if I'm being honest. If I'm being realistic with the way they're playing right now, if they do not change anything about what they're doing, which obviously they need to, they will lose one of the next 2 games. You got to get the game with Nola, right? That one has to be a given. You have to win that one. One of these next 2 games, whether it's Strom, which Strom looked all right in his last start, right?
Strom has been the best pitcher of the 3 you just named. And that's a problem in itself with Taijuan Walker, who just got a 4-year deal here, who I thought could be an X factor for them this year. Again, 2 starts. I'm not trying to rip into each individual so early in the year. Hasn't been good enough. Nola clearly hasn't been good enough. So Strom's been the best one.
Yeah, looks like he hasn't given up a run.
He hasn't
this season. Yeah. So
in 9 innings of work.
So I would give them the win in that game. So what it comes down to for me would be this game tonight with Walker at the mound. And really, it's really about the bats too, man. I think the bats, like we've said, they're just not playing together. Like everything is individual. It
Yep.
almost feels like it's like one gets a hit and then the next three strike out or
There's no
pop out.
passing the baton to the next guy.
Yeah, there's no chemistry going on right here. So what I would say tonight, this would be the game that I would say I'm about. But you got to win the next three. Let me just put it that way. Like we've talked about this whole second half of the show. They have to win these next three, and I think this is going to bode well towards them getting closer to 500. That goal we talked about probably a week ago, and seems like we've gotten further from it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna instill my faith in the Phillies one last time, Dylan. I'm gonna do it one last time until further notice. If they
until
win
they
these
until
next
they
three,
physically prove otherwise.
yeah, exactly. If they don't win this one tonight, then we know what's up, and I can't instill that faith in them anymore until further notice. But I'm gonna go with them getting a big W tonight. They've lost 3 in a row. So you kind of, looking at it from both ends, right? You've lost 3 in a row, so you need to win this one tonight. You should win the next 2 because you have Strom, who hasn't given up any runs. You have Nola, who's supposed to be one of your aces. We know that's not true so far this season, but he's supposed to be. So, yeah, I think they need to win these next 3. I think that has to be the way it plays out if the Phillies are any type of serious, right? If they're any type of serious. But let me throw it back to you. What do they need to do? And obviously give me your predictions as well. But what do they need to do tonight? And I know we're not doing pregame right now, but tonight and over the next 3 games in order to get that done, what needs to change here?
So I'll start with the pitching staff, and this kind of translates into Rob Thompson because you're not getting enough from your starters. You're just not. Even when Taijuan Walker only gives up a run or two, he's thrown 105 pitches through 4 1/3 inning work. Yeah. It's not good enough. And then Rob Thompson has to decide what button to press and when to press it with this bullpen. And yeah, I think this bullpen can be damn good when they're used properly and used minimally in the 7th inning and on. There's been one start, a Zach Wheeler start, to get through 6 innings pitched. It's not nearly good enough because instead of getting through 6 with your starter and you have options of Alvarado, Dominguez, Soto, Kimbrel, Bellotti in 3 innings or 2 innings, you are now starting from like the 5th and he has to piece together 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's too difficult at this point, and there's too many unknowns in the bullpen. So pitching, getting deeper into games, limiting damage, stop giving up 2-out RBIs with 2 strikes. Pitching's
to the Reds
in that case.
To the Reds, right. Stop doing it to the Reds, especially.
Secondly, when it comes to the lineup, Rob needs to be consistent and find the order he wants. Yeah. Stop playing guys that don't deserve to be in the lineup, like Christian Pache, like Cody Clemens. I don't care. And they just need to do minor league stuff, man. Pick up your first base coach or your third base coach earlier on your sprint. Don't make base running mistakes. Have a better plate approach. This entire team feels like it's swinging for the fences on the first pitch of every at-bat. Yeah. Figure out your approach as a team. Play for one another. Start having fun. There's too much leadership in this clubhouse for this team to look this way right now.
That's the problem.
And of course, clearly, like, what fixes the running and scoring runners in scoring position? Nothing until they start putting bat to ball, right? Yeah, like nothing can actually fix that. There's nothing I can point to, but they themselves just need to change that. So Scotty, it's honestly like it's a lot. But it's little things.
Yeah.
There's nothing majorly wrong with this team. It is fundamental stuff that they need to clean up from a manager standpoint, from a hitting standpoint, getting your pitchers deeper into games. I agree.
Why does it feel like everything's so nonchalant right now? Like
it does. That's the problem.
Like, who is the leader? Like Schwartz is supposed to be a leader, right? You would expect Trey Turner to be somewhat of a leader in the locker room or in the dugout. Like, why is it so nonchalant? Is everybody just coasting until Bryce Harper comes back? Like, what is the deal? Right. I don't understand. Like,
because there's obviously a mix of being a veteran player and knowing that the first 13 games doesn't define your season
Right.
compared to a fan that reacts and overreacts to every minute detail and every loss.
Yeah.
But the players need to take on more urgency like the fan base is right now.
Yeah.
Because like I said, you're right. If you're Kyle Schwarber and you think 13 games will be okay, but you need to start fixing it now. 4-9 can't turn into 7-16.
But see, the problem is right now, Kyle Schwarber is making the base running mistakes. So like he can't even call out Christian Pache because he's doing the same thing. So it's like you got to start by leading by example.
I agree with you, man.
It is
I
crazy.
I would say this. They need. When does the bleeding stop?
Yeah,
I know the injuries have piled up early on in the year. You knew heading in here without Bryce.
I mean,
you lose Reese a week before opening day. You lose Derek Hall, his replacement, a couple games in.
And he was actually.
We don't have Ranger yet. Painter still hasn't been able to debut because of his injury. I know they've piled up. And I know it's still early. But when does the bleeding stop? And to me, it has to stop now, like you said.
Yeah.
Prediction-wise, I can't confidently nor logically say they're going to win the next 3.
Yeah.
But that is the beautiful thing about this sport. You get to go back out there almost every single day.
Yeah.
And change the momentum and change the energy. You get to baseball is such a momentum sport. I talk to you about that all the time heading into the postseason last year. It just takes that. The question is, you look for something normally that's going to change the momentum, right? You look for a big timely hit. And you had those moments already. You had that Kyle Schwarber home run in the Bronx that you thought, and they won that game, and you thought, okay, this could be it. That wasn't it. You had the walk-off on Saturday against the Reds. That wasn't it.
Right.
You had the Alcantara start. You had the Alcantara start. That wasn't it. So I'm sitting here tonight, like in my mind, I'm like, okay, you know, if Turner hits a 3-run home run early for the lead and it's his first home run of the year, that could be the difference. If Walker goes 7 scoreless, but I don't know because tomorrow they could look like a completely different team from what they do tonight. So until I'm with you, man, until I start to see consistency in this team, I don't know. Like Scotty, they're not even consistently losing the same way.
Yeah.
They do nothing consistent, good or bad. But I agree with you, man. I think
maybe Trey Turner going yard, man. Maybe that can spark something.
It needs to. It needs to because, like I said, he hasn't been the problem, and Trey Turner is a joy to watch every night. And the dude is hitting 300 plus on the year so far. Yeah. He hasn't come up with a timely hit yet. He's ended the last 2 games, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I get it. 2 outs, momentum feels wrong. 2 games ago at home, you had a ghost runner on second. A single probably ties the game. Pops up. Last night, 2 outs, 2 runners on. Whether you walk, get on, it's a 4-run game. Schwarber can get up and have a chance to tie it. You strike out on a horrible swing and miss. No home runs yet. You know what I mean? So
big time plays.
It has to start tonight.
The big time plays just haven't been there, man. I think that's what we're realizing. And in the few games where the big time plays have been there, they have won. And I think that's the difference.
Absolutely. But there needs to be a consistency with those big time plays.
Yep.
Guys, with that is going to wrap up this Friday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. As always, if you are new to the channel, make sure to check us out on Twitter first at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. It is greatly appreciated. And while you're over on the channel, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform. We are available on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that good stuff. But most importantly, make sure to check out the YouTube channel specifically. For some reason today, it wasn't the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up, but we're hoping that was just a minor bug that can be fixed. But it is normally the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions up to be interactive on the show. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. It is also the home of all of our DSM pregame lives. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your Friday and enjoy the weekend.